I'm Denis Bednyagin. So I'm calling you from Switzerland, close to Zurich. And it's a great honor for me to participate in your podcast. I really want to start with a presentation about myself because I'm not a public person. So I've done some presentation during my PhD times, and now I'm back to public space because I see big problems, not only with climate policy, energy policy, but essentially with general situation in the world, which I consider is truly World War III. So I'm originally from Soviet Union, and I have like two parts inside myself, Ukraine, Russian roots. I don't make distinction. And I think it's quite important to reflect on the history of Soviet Union or former Tsarist Russia and what we observe now. So I was born in Leningrad at that time. My ancestors also from St. Petersburg. One of my grandfathers served at the royal court in St. Petersburg, and the situation changed drastically with this Red Revolution at that time. So, like people who revolted, they thrown up, they changed completely the existing system, and we know how it ended. So it took 70 years of this, let's say, perestroika with the revolution that time. And we went through this World War II situation. So my grandfather, he died during siege of Leningrad. And that was the time then millions of people actually died because of hunger, because of cold, and because of bombardments. And reflecting on the history of my family and seeing what's happening now, like people saying, oh, warming is not good, we got to cool planet, and we all know that warmer weather is good for growing food and for survival of people. So I immediately see a big contradiction and some sort of reminiscence to my old childhood. So I grown up in the 80s, and it was with Cold War again, with the war and cold opposition. So, and it was the time of a huge propaganda. So all Soviet population were brainwashed that America is bad and tomorrow they will bombard us with atomic bombs. And I really recall nightmares from my childhood. And I woke up after listening with Soviet TV with nightmare that there is an atomic war. Yeah, and we were trained in kindergarten, in school, how to hide. And lucky we are, Mr. Gorbachev launched with perestroika, and for him the first step to reform the country was to allow free speech. We call it in Russian glasnost. And all of a sudden we got access to truthful information about our history, about like what's happening in the Western countries, doors open. And it was like complete reversal in mind and in the whole situation. So I was, as a citizen of St. Petersburg, witnessing with early days of market economy in Russia. And here, one important thing I want to, let's say, start my talk and then I get back to it in the end. So we know that Mr. Putin is governing Russia for the last 20 plus years. So there is an entire new generation. And my concern is that a lot of smart people in energy, in IT, in with social media who don't accept this propaganda in Western countries. They believe, oh, Mr. Putin is against, so he's a kind of hero for the smart people, whereas it's not true. So we've witnessed his ascent from a small KGB spy. I even had some friends of mine getting their papers signed when he was like a KGB manager at the University of St. Petersburg. It was published in newspapers. It was a whole story raised by the deputy of city parliament, that the guy who was responsible for foreign trade deals. So she was actually working not in national interest, but a close group of mafioso who were making big money from controlling these trades. And we will get back to it. I think we really need to understand what drives Russian politics right now. And we need to understand the background of the rulers of Russia of today. So these are different, Russian people and the rulers. And funny story here is that with building its offices of power machine groups, actually, this is exactly the place I had my second leg of my professional career. It's like a Russian version of Siemens, Alstom, and I was behind the doors there. Mr. Putin was passing by. He was practicing his judo. The stuff there. So again, with Russia, it was turbulent. So I was lucky to get accepted to this famous Institute of International Relations, GIMO. So there are few faces here, like top left is Mr. Anton Vaino. He is head of presidential administration of Mr. Putin. He graduated the same year as myself from GIMO, sitting next door at the university canteen. Then left bottom, Mr. Medinsky, who is the head of the delegation of Russia at the ongoing peace talks with Ukrainians. Funny thing, so he also graduated from GIMO, and not 2, 3, but 4 friends of mine used to work for him during their internship. So he was running at that time like advertising agency. As young students, we were partying quite a lot, and I came across him. And my own internship was with a guy on top right, Mr. Ivanishvili. At that time, he was the founder and owner of the bank Russian Credit. So I was, my first internship was Department of International Expansion. I was in charge of establishing like branch office and then affiliate bank in Ukraine. And then Mr. Ivanishvili became like a big boss at that time, president of the Republic of Georgia. So now he is like behind the scene running the country. And the situation with tanks, I actually was running around with tanks. It was 1903. Then we really shoot at buildings there. Russian parliament had their headquarters, so now it's headquarters of Russian government. So I really, night before I was on the street, we had this barricade, like you heard the story from French Revolution, people going on barricades. So I had this experience, and I've seen this exactly tanks shooting at city parliament. So next, oh yeah, here is an important point. So on the right, so I've done a faculty of economic relation, and in our university, we were the first to study real economics, as it was taught by Nobel Prize laureates Paul Samuelson and Bill Nordhaus. So we will get back to this interesting connection, but I've studied with textbook, and in parallel, all other people in Russia, including engineering schools, they were studying political economics focused on this classical Marxism theory. So we were ahead of them. So after graduation, I came back to St. Petersburg, started working at this nice building behind Mr. Putin. And my first job was about securing finance package for a big hydropower extension project in India, Balimela. So as a guy with economic, financial background, I was asked to assist with raising a finance package. So I went also to Switzerland, talking to some friends of mine, other places. And I realized, financing energy infrastructure, it's not an easy task. So it requires quite a lot of knowledge about the underlying technology. And then Mr. Putin came to power, and I was again dreaming, maybe it's time to go international. And they offered me to go as a project manager at the construction site of this 256 megawatts thermal power plant in Finland. And our company supplied with turbine generator units. So I really spent day and nights for 1.5 years at the construction site. And the beauty of this project is that it's quite north of Finland. So during the year, I remember 3 days I could wear a t-shirt. And during the winter time, it was below -40. So the grease in the car was freezing, so you cannot steer the wheels at that time. And at one moment, we had this commissioning and takeover tests at the power plant. So we were in island mode, and the whole nearby city was depending on us. And then there was a minor mistake in turbine controller that didn't allow us to take the power. And it meant that we really had a risk to freeze people during the winter time. Thousands of people. Okay, we survived. I managed with my IT engineer over the phone how to start up, and it was fine. But still, it's a great installation, multi-fuel. So it's startups with coal, and then it can burn peat, it can burn bark, so we call it the still biggest purpose designed biomass facility in the world. And one more thing about this, it's 250 megawatts. So when we hear about these new small modular nuclear reactors, this is not small. This is how 250 megawatt facility looked like. So it's huge. So it will be also important later in my presentation. So that time I haven't spent that much efforts on facilitating this project. As manager, I realized, I need to get some engineering knowledge. So, and that brought me to Switzerland. So I enrolled for this graduate master's studies in energy. So we had an international program hosted by EPFL, and EPFL is one of top 20 at that time. Nowadays, 30 university in the world according to various rankings. And also we had the contribution from ETHZ, which is one of top 10 universities of the world, and other UK-based, Spanish. So we covered the whole over 2 years of studies, covered the whole supply chain of energy, starting from mining, be it coal, oil, gas, to thermodynamics, environmental chemistry, to power engineering, electrical engineering, power system engineering, electrical engineering, then economics and law. So that gave me like a very broad understanding and in-depth understanding that I could further improve through my in parallel work as a researcher at the Laboratory of Energy Systems. So, and then I continued with PhD in Lausanne. We have a small experimental thermonuclear fusion reactor. So the head of this project was appointed as the director of the whole European fusion development program. They had issues to justify to policymakers the need to increase finance. So they've launched so-called program of socio-economic research on fusion. So we got to use different types of models from energy systems, and then with integrated assessment models and to figure out whether it made sense to pursue fusion research, which is always like 50 years ahead of first commercially viable installation. So my issue with presenting this background of myself, since I quite active on LinkedIn, I try to explain my position of various events in Zurich, Switzerland, not yet internationally. So when there is discussion about climate, about energy, most of people I hear with all their heresy, they have no engineering background at all. So I have lawyers, bankers, IT guys, whatever, marketing guys, medicine, but I have yet to talk to a person who studied energy system, power engineering and stuff. So these guys, they just do their job within their offices, they get paid, but they never go into like more broad political discussions. And the same with discussions about climate. So you can have brilliant scientists who are well paid to promote with climate alarmism agenda to justify public spending, but they are myopic with their climate. So and then there is the whole energy system that they completely ignore how it operates. And I think that's the main strength that I bring and main value that I am capable to bring to this public debate on an international level with my knowledge, experience. So now we come to the essential point of my talk for today. So my very first project, it was 2002, when I was hired to do this master program and do the research. It was about national strategy study on clean development mechanism for the implementation of clean development mechanism in China. So our lab was a part of international advisory group to the government of China. So we were paid by Swiss Confederation, and another part essentially for Chinese colleagues came from World Bank. And the main issue at that time was to convince biggest emitters of CO2 to ratify Kyoto Protocol. So how can you do it? Yeah, with China, it was the same situation with Russia at that time. Show them the money. And since our research lab was deeply into energy system modeling, so bottom up with smart call, market allocation, so looking deeper into technical parameters of various energy installations, and then also advising government at that time energy power supply was a natural monopoly. So the paradigm was about least cost expansion planning of energy systems. So you got to optimize for the cost and for real reliability. And we had these models, so I've got to look deeper into those integrated assessment models. So since I had economics background, so I had to look more into macroeconomics models integration within energy system models, and then also to look into with climate models. So, and then you get this integrated energy, environment, economy modeling framework, for which William Nordhaus deserved his Nobel Prize later on. So I got to review all that stuff. So in parallel, we've done our research on power generation system in Shanghai province. So we found interesting opportunity, not huge, but reasonable, a few hundred millions per year from ratification of Kyoto and making with carbon emission reduction projects. And and I wrote also my master dissertation on this topic. And the day I had my defense, so it was nice. It was a great job, but the experts who came from this group working for World Bank asked me, "Okay, boy, you've done a good job, but what is not okay in your work?" And I told him, "Yeah, all these methodologies for calculating carbon emission reductions, they assume zero emission factor for all types of climate change mitigation technologies, with a few exceptions, but solar, wind." And I told him, yeah, our lab, besides this modeling, we were really one of the leaders in life cycle assessment. With solar panel, wind turbines, they don't grow in trees, so there is a certain carbon footprint in the upfront manufacturing processes. So it may be that I'm overestimating the potential profits for China from this carbon trading by overestimating absolute amount of carbon emissions reduction they generate. And the answer was really amazing. So the person told me, "Relax, boy." So I'll tell you more. All those projects were also not additional, not only on environmental side, but on economic. So there is a investment additionality criterion. So you only finance those projects which are viable. And he told me, "You got to understand the reason we want those governments to ratify Kyoto Protocol and impose with carbon emission reductions had nothing to do with climate. So we just want to reinforce energy security in developed countries. So in the past, during with oil crisis caused by geopolitical tensions, so our economies were severely hit by this oil price shock embargoes. So big guys decided, yeah, we need alternative energy supply options. So that's why right now with solar, wind extremely expensive. So we are talking 25 years ago. So we need to boost the introduction of those technologies into the market. And there is social good about it. Yeah, we can lie a little bit on the carbon, but hopefully in the end, society will be better off. So that's the background story of this whole carbon mitigation effort, disguised under auspices of fighting global warming, according to my knowledge, let's say. Yeah. and my experience. Okay, so time has passed. I got my PhD. I started working as an advisor in one investment boutique and advisory boutique focused on energy. So we've got a mandate with second biggest electrical utility company in Switzerland. It was 2010, 2011, and they asked us, "Oh, guys, can you have a look at our portfolio with carbon emission reduction projects?" So what they are worth, what we're really getting was CO2 emission reductions or not. So I had a look at those projects at that time. So we identified a huge problems, putting it politely. So many critical aspects were overlooked, meaning that those emission reductions in their portfolio were not real and really presented the risk. And here in this slide, I provide up-to-date information on a retrospective analysis of all those carbon emission reduction efforts under Kyoto Protocol. So as you see from this graph, nothing has been achieved, and especially when it comes towards renewable energy projects like solar and wind. And with the science, so real peer-reviewed, published in Nature Communications. So that's harsh reality, and it's impossible to ignore. So the next striking point for me to go deeper into questioning what's happening in the world with this climate energy. So I've tried to develop my own projects in Africa, Botswana. It was about energy crops, biogas, solar PV, and I thought, okay, maybe we can certify this project as carbon emission reduction mechanism, either CDM, institutional or voluntary. And I came across this position paper of Interpol. And it explicitly says, guys, if you misrepresent actual amount of carbon emission reduction from the project, you are into red area. And so it's a carbon trading crime. And I became, that could be risk. So I'm a honest guy. I know those issues. I want to look deeper into both values, underlined with zero carbon emission factor of solar, wind, renewables. So with carbon offset, and with quote, it comes from Interpol position paper. So offsets are imaginary commodity created by deducting what you hope happens. So you don't have reliable data what happens on the ground from what you guess may have happened in the future. So you can manipulate it any way you like. And this is exactly what happened with this voluntary carbon credits. So basically, the origin of this voluntary carbon offsets, there were a lot of guys who couldn't qualify even under CDM rules. So there were a few guys here in Switzerland, and it was a big story a couple of years ago, South Pole. So they said, why don't we sell this fake carbon offset to corporates as voluntary? And this is how this whole story of Vera started. So guys really couldn't qualify for stringent but still passable requirements of this institutional grade CDM, clean development mechanism. So I realized, there is an issue. I've got to dig into the technology, upstream manufacturing processes. On the first element that struck my mind. Then I look into details of calculation of carbon footprint of solar. Coal is used not only as a power source, but it's a raw material feedstock for production of silicon. So then I look into the data from this EcoInvent database. So our lab was one of the contributors to the version 1 of it. So I know how it's done. So it's a colleague of mine sitting on his desk in front of me, reading some reports he can find on internet and make an assumption for this database that nowadays drives this whole carbon abatement story. It's nonsense. So at that time, like 20 years ago, a little bit of silicon was produced in Norway or Iceland using hydropower and whatever charcoal from woody biomass. But all the time, all that stuff shifted to China. So you've got to have this coal electrodes. You've got to have coal power plants because it's endothermic reaction in enormous amount. You've got to have these wood chips from whatever import is either from Myanmar or from Siberia to China. And it's not in this presentation, but it's all located in this Uyghur Xinjiang autonomous region where actually labor force practices are in a full swing. So then I got in touch with Thomas Troschak. He is an amazing person. I think he appeared in this documentary of Michael Moore explaining it's Planet of the Humans. So that's an amazing documentary. And he demonstrates, guys, this is your clean CO2 solar panel, and this is how it's made. So Tom has made a nice publication. It's not in Nature or Science, but it's published by a journal issued by NATO. Actually, but it's a good reference that gives you transparent, credible numbers of the amount of fossil fuels that goes into solar PV installations. Then second issue with them, Kyoto Protocol was about reducing greenhouse gas emission with the objective to limit warming. It had a quantified target. So now Paris Accord is about limiting warming. So it only says, we got to reduce greenhouse emission as soon as possible. There is only one quantified target, 2 degrees for warming, ideally 1.5. So what we are doing with those solar panels, we are warming climate. And it's absolutely unacceptable, in my opinion. So I've been reading with IPCC assessment reports since its third version appeared in end of 90s or early 2000. So when I realized this issue, it was assessment report number 5. I looked and found, it's outdated. So I diligently was waiting for assessment report number 6. And guess what? They didn't change anything. So they cited the same old paper of Hu et al. So it's a meta-study reviewing other studies on carbon footprint of solar PV. So most of our studies are dated 20, 25 years ago. So even a WHO study is 10 years ago. And outliers, of course, were omitted. So it's cherry picking. And when they come up with ridiculously low figure. And anything related to warming effect, they simply ignored. So they found one paper that was telling, oh, maybe it's warming, maybe it's cooling. They ignored all other evidence and limited their third part of assessment report, climate change mitigation. So nowadays we have 6,000 pages, roughly one third goes to this. Only like 3 paragraphs dedicated to most essential things in this whole climate and energy policy globally, on which we've been spending trillions of regular taxpayers' money. So only 3 paragraphs saying we don't care. Whereas, if with global warming or climate change represents an existential threat for humanity, you have to look at the bulletproof solutions. So meticulously calculate every step, collect data, review it. No, they ignore, and all other 2,000 pages of this climate change mitigation part. Okay, let's spend the money on this policy, on these devices, and we don't care at all about their carbon footprint and impact on climate, which is actually warming. So that's evidence. It's available in public access. So when there is a brilliant, like independent researcher, Enrico Mariutti, initially he reported on his findings of carbon accounting fraud in this EcoInvent lifecycle inventory database. So he said, oh guys, the figures don't match with the reality. And then just a few weeks ago, he published a peer-reviewed paper, which is accessible to everyone without paywall, where he raises a question with LCA methodologies, then they apply to the purpose of climate change mitigation. They don't work. And this is exactly my own experience, dated 20 years back, when our lab was really initiating with LCA studies. So with LCA tool, it serves the purpose of technical commercial optimization. So they used it for like climate impact assessment simply because there are no better tools. But it doesn't fit the purpose. That's a harsh reality. So you need to assess the real environmental impact of these quasi-renewables. I call them quasi-renewables because they all rely on fossil fuels in upstream manufacturing. Yeah. So that's an issue. Then both Thomas and Enrico, they propose, guys, this is what International Energy Agency in its series of LCI studies on solar PV are calculating with extremely false and assumptions, all the underestimations, but there's a whole system around it. And we get a false signal. So that's something what I've learned during my studies and research, and I guess absolute majority of audience is aware that more you research, more you study, you realize how much more you don't know and how much research is needed. So these are kind of topics I'm looking for last 3-4 years. So I'm not paid, so it's just my day, nights and activities. And that's what I want to present right now. So talking about Mr. or Professor Dr. William Nordhaus, so he got his Nobel Prize for his integrated assessment models. He deserved it basically together with Paul Samuelson for the textbook, but this is excerpts from his Nobel Prize lecture. So what are the main assumptions that deserve him with gold medal and $1 million and respect of alarmist community? So this is a fact. So consumption of fossil fuels drives economic progress, and we have through like basic physics, chemistry, CO2 emission from combustion of carbon. But the second assumption of his integrated assessment modeling, that CO2 concentrations creates disastrous weather events. And this is already questionable. And then are we sure that anthropogenic carbon emissions are responsible for global CO2 concentrations? They made the assumption, yes, but latest evidence says no. And are they sure, as we saw the example of solar PV, that our climate change mitigation actions really reduce carbon emissions? No. So these are three big question marks which I had when I saw, okay, first IPCC got their Nobel Prize in Peace for their efforts. Then our house got his Nobel Prize. And I've started really going deep into details. Every day I come across a new publication, or recently I've covered old publication in LinkedIn and Facebook, very intelligent people who share this knowledge. And I just start to assemble all information into one big document, just references to truthful academic knowledge. And one big problem I came across in my discussion among different communities, both climate realists and climate alarmists, in order to have meaningful discussion, you need to agree on the definition of terms. So there is global warming, climate change, what is climate? People never look into definition of climate. And here I provide just two examples, one from Britannica Encyclopedia, another from IPCC. And the basic feature of climate is that it's a local phenomenon. So like in Switzerland, we have different cantons. In Zurich, we have one climate. In French-speaking part, Geneva, another climate. In Italian-speaking part, Ticino, we have different climate, guys. And it's not only temperature, it's a whole range of variability throughout a year of this temperature. And there are other elements of the weather, like insulation, like wind force and dimension or direction, atmospheric pressure, and all related to cloudiness, so it's driven by humidity, precipitation. It's a whole thing. So if you put your wind turbine in between two villages where you had the regular wind flow, like in Swiss Valley, okay, the climate in another village downwards will change. So that's the important feature. So anything what we say we got to calculate with climate change, or let's say 30 years or 150, it's absolute arbitrary. So it's made on purpose to create this alarmism mood within the public, but it's not science. So what is climate change? It's also a big issue. Definition of climate change is ignored. So IPCC doesn't say explicitly, but UN Framework Convention on Climate Change says climate change is something what is directly attributed to human activity that changes composition of the atmosphere, assuming these are greenhouse gas emissions, but we also emit particulate matter and other aerosols, etc. So any human activity, even breathing, so by inhaling air and exhaling through metabolism, we multiply concentration of CO2 in the air 100 times. This is science, it's measurable. So every human being acts as a mini power plant. And then if we look how that at least temperature behaves, so on an intra-annual basis. So we have to fear of 0.01 degrees Celsius change over year, whereas temperature naturally fluctuates within a range of like 50, 16 more degrees. And more strikingly, and this is completely ignored, and that needs to be emphasized. So what's happening with temperatures? It's minimum temperatures that are slightly increasing, whereas maximum temperatures remain more or less stable. And if we look into like different places around the world, do we have the same warming? It looks stable. So everyone can download the data. Unfortunately, they removed this nice graphics, so you got to make additional effort. But our world in data has it in free access, different countries. You can see how monthly temperatures fluctuates. There is no increase in absolute maximum temperatures throughout a year. This is basic science, and even no recognizes that. So it's published on their website and in their Twitter. Yeah, winter temperatures increase, whereas summer temperatures were stagnant, and we got to look where it happens. So both increase of minimum temperatures, they are in the places in extreme altitudes close to poles, essentially Antarctics, where nobody lives. Whereas in the areas mostly populated, yeah, we have stable climate, nothing to worry about. And another aspect of it. So for layman person, when she says, oh, global warming, he knows maybe in Middle East or south of US, Mexico, you have a hot weather. So implicitly they make assumption that it's getting hotter. No, in arid hot areas, climate becomes wetter. And it's also written on NOAA's website, so it's not conspiracy theory of climate realists, but it's their own data and acknowledgement. Yeah, so then if we talk about different theories, have nice work of Harvard Institute. Nowadays, we make also great podcasts. So there are different theories, and my feeling, okay, they all act on their side. So it's always a combination of different elements that affect weather patterns. Yeah, forget climate. We are talking only about weather. And different cycles, and then that fluctuates over years and years. Sometimes you get more warming, sometimes you get more cooling. So we can live with it. So even within my academic practice of with energy system models. So at that time, we had a big story about liberalization of electricity markets, and we use with system dynamics models. So then I was studying, looking into climate. That's even more complex. So you have so many different factors which are interdependent. And I was always struggling. Oh, so these guys are doing this modeling and simple market design using the system dynamics. And here we have a whole like energy system and climate system, and we ignore what's happening inside the oceans. That's absolute mystery. Only a few smart guys know what's going on there. So then we come to second point of Mr. Nordhaus Nobel Prize lecture, whether reduction of anthropogenic carbon emission really affects CO2 concentration in there. And the answer, no. So, and we have the data, and it's also acknowledged by NO itself. So we had with the drastic reduction of fossil fuel consumption during oil crisis back in 70s. And during COVID current time, we reduced carbon emission much more than Kyoto Protocol wanted us, like 6.5%, 7% below previous year. Kyoto Protocol wanted to reduce by 5%. Guys, it was so always with climate alarmists claim, concentration rises because everything emitted in 1 year accumulates and it stays there. It's a false assumption, but at least we now have a proof that any assumed to be a carbon emission reduction effort doesn't affect global CO2 concentration. We have this data. So rate of increase of CO2 concentration increased. So that's official information from NOAA's website. So then you have plenty of academic papers trying to prove existence or disprove the existence of enhanced greenhouse effects. I'm sure audience have seen. So I cite one of those that makes reference to this Karl-Popper falsifiability arguments. So, we know it doesn't work. And if we try to figure out how it works, so we've got to look at like relative importance of anthropogenic emission and natural carbon flows. And it's a teeny fraction. And on annual basis, since the CO2 concentration on seasonal cycles goes up and down on interannual basis, it basically equilibrates. So there are other factors that define with CO2 concentration at Mauna Lower, different concentration in Antarctica. And if we measure next to our houses, it will exhibit a whole range. So our statisticians and bankers from Norway, they took the real historical temperature data, many places around the world, compared with CO2 emissions. They found no correlations. So it's false. And there is like working paper, alarmists can criticize, oh, it's not peer-reviewed, but there is an original peer-reviewed paper which is accessible. So then we have excellent researchers like Ned Nikolov, Carl Zeller, who apply physics, mathematics, and brain, and we come up with other theories which are much closer to reality, and we have hundreds and if not thousands of brilliant researchers, engineers, just thinkers who are find other explanation for currently observed global warming. And now third pillar of this integrated assessment modeling, the assumption that global warming is dangerous for human beings. So what is being mostly ignored is the fact that climate is hostile for human beings. So we need to warm climate in order to survive. Even mildly warm weather below 18 degrees Celsius is deadly for human body. And there are many statistical studies on mortality, and they all come to conclusion. So there are 10 times more people who die because of lower than optimal temperatures compared to extreme heat. So I cite one of those, but there are many other studies like that. So I think it's also important to convey to all audience and then to broad public. So it's not just an assumption, or that I like maybe 20 degrees, or some person can live with 15 fresh air. No, it also comes from World Health Organization. Was a big research that came up. Anything below 18 degrees Celsius is damaging for human health. And then there are other studies that confirm that it's not only for human beings, but also for most of the nature ecosystem. So with 20 degrees Celsius is an optimal temperature where our life on planet Earth thrives. And the current temperature, could be discussion whether it's 14 degrees Celsius or really 15 with always manipulation in indices. And we are 5 degrees below comfortable. 4-5 degrees below minimum necessary, and it's also on average. And if we look into seasonal variations, winter temperatures, we are dozens and dozens degrees below. So we cannot survive without warming. It's inherent for human civilization to warm climate. So that's a real fact. There are good studies examining real effects of warming and use of fossil fuels on different aspects of human life, crops productivity, protection against adverse weather events, etc. And then we have this main feature of integrated assessment model that has a repercussion for all people in terms of carbon emission pricing. So the main contribution of Nordhaus with this approach of integrated assessment modeling was comparing taxation mechanism versus cap and trade mechanism. And he was right, like free market-driven environmental policy are more efficient and less costly. So that's okay, but probably doesn't deserve Nobel Prize, but it's scientific discovery, which is meaningful. Whereas these guys, what they did, they have embedded this fraudulent damage function. So assuming that CO2 is detrimental and creates a huge damage. And when knowledgeable, curious people look into detail, so like Ross McKittrick, this is what they discover. So in fact, CO2 has fertilization and very beneficial effects for agriculture. And with assumption of like 150 or $500 per ton of CO2 carbon tax is based on fraud. So that's a harsh reality of environmental policy. So we definitely observe massive regreening on Earth. There are dozens of publications, and it's all linked to betterment of the climate, CO2 fertilization, and more humidity in arid areas. So it's really Africa is regreening now. It's the Sahel region that suffered a lot. And can we come to politics? There are also studies that examine social dynamics, put it this way, as in relation to climatic changes, natural climatic changes in the past. So, of course, we know that medieval world period was warmer than we have now. Roman world period was also warmer. And the periods then massive population decline and due to epidemics, wars happen. It was during the coldest periods. So, and it's only thanks to fossil fuels that we can avoid it. So there are other issues that I will cover in the end of my presentation, that's the reality. So it's all frauds, like wind power, warming climate, it pollute climate with this leading edge turbine blade erosion. So they use balsa trees, the part of their composite plastics, and it has also issues in Amazonia, in Ecuador, in Peru. It's all silence, so with microplastic pollution, which is cancerogenic, and that goes into seas where we farm our fish. And if you go to Germany or whatever Texas area, have these agricultural farms all around. It also goes from turbine blades. And if you want to properly assess, like, whether your environmental policy makes sense. So you've got to look at the full energy return on energy invested. So there are several studies. So when I got to publish some part of my academic work to get a PhD, so I was doing a research on thermal nuclear fusion, and one of the reviewers asked, how much energy do we need to spend to build your new thermal nuclear fusion reactors in the future? And how much it will consume? Of course, we know confinement of plasma, you need to spend a lot of energy. So I dig into this and came across several papers. So Weisbach was one of the pioneers. So the research or published research in this area, accessible right now. Another paper, person I met here in Switzerland, Ferruccio Ferroni, he reviewed energy return on energy invested of solar PV as it is installed in moderate climate conditions like Switzerland, Germany. And conclusion is obvious. You spend more energy to manufacture, operate backup all systems and recycle when you get intermittent, unreliable electricity out of this panel. So there was counter paper written by this IEA, LCA experts, quasi-experts, and the second paper fully refuted with counter-arguments, confirming the final. So we are talking about net energy sink here. And this is important, I think, for understanding of this unprecedented, massive, unacceptable carbon accounting fraud. So this is how they calculate official values So this is a International Energy Agency series of publication that lasts probably 20 years, where we calculate carbon emission footprint per 1 kilowatt hour of solar PV. Extremely low, but how we arrive to it? So first of all, we ignore all carbon emission from producing silicon. Very optimistic, but very comprehensive looking like good job midstream. Where we calculate emissions related to manufacturing of solar panels. Then we completely ignore backup, which is needed for reliable, valuable electricity supply, and make a very optimistic assumption on energy consumed in recycling. And it's all divided by denominator, which is extremely exaggerated. So we make assumption that one solar panel lasts for 25, 30 years, whereas in reality, it could be like 10, 12 years, proven by empirical data. We have like capacity factor of this turbine, which is taken in AA in south of Italy. Whereas if you take it to Germany or UK, Nordics or Canada, the same panel will produce 2, 3, or 4 times less. And this is how they inflate or fake with extremely low carbon emission factor that goes everywhere. Whereas from scientific point of view, you just have to properly count for nominator in this equation. And that's the real carbon footprint of your renewable energy installation. So that's a source of this fraud in all this climate change mitigation politics. So then we tried even to pretend they have reviewed like European, American, Chinese. So I look into reports of carbon dioxide factor. It's the same for China and US, meaning, yeah, it's fraud. And then another magic climate solution, hydrogen, that also warms climate indirectly through different chemical processes and physical processes. So it's also a ridiculous assumption that renewables plus hydrogen storage can do anything good for averting global warming. And reality is harsh. So that's primary energy consumption statistics. So here we lie like exaggerating contribution of solar and wind by 2.5 times with the statistical substitution methods, pretending that solar panel can replace coal used in manufacturing of this for solar panel, like circle logic, or like gas can replace always hydrocarbon used in manufacturing turbine winds, wind turbine ales. Yeah, absolutely ridiculous. And what we see here is that with forced introduction of with quasi-renewables over past decades, they simply pushed the demands for fossil fuels up front. It is visible from this previous equation I have shown. So all these carbon emissions happen right here, right now. And there is only a mere chance to offset them over time. So what drives this whole story about this climate change, whatever politics, besides this energy security issue I mentioned? So mostly like mental or psychological issues, like bad news sell better. That's natural, and people who became obsessed. It's also statistical evidence available for were slightly not normal or not conventionally normal behavior. And so with anxiety is a sign. And then, given my very first background in banking, finance, so my conclusion why we strive for improving or enhancing energy security derailed into complete destruction of energy security. So I didn't hear with thoughts from other people, so I'm eager to discuss it with others. So I think we are to blame bankers, not politicians, not journalists, not even with producers of whatever quasi-renewables, but bankers. So back in the days, like 20 years ago, on the centralized market setup, if you want to build a new power plant, okay, you had an offtake agreement. Then you have a long-term fuel supply agreement, coal or gas. Then you have EPC contract for construction of your power plant, and that's basically it. And you have to put equity. And then beginning of 2000, okay, our politician looked into technological progress. So we've got with combined cycle technology that really reduced the cost and made this power generation business attractive. So we decided, okay, let's liberalize the coal markets, electricity markets. And all of a sudden, bankers found themselves under huge problems. So you've got to deal with uncertainty in upstream fuel supply. You've got to deal with uncertainty in a downstream electricity sale market. Okay, you still can hire a reliable EPC contractor at that time, Siemens or Alstom or similar guys, but uncertainty extremely increased for regular banker who have no clue how to cope with them, how to properly assess with financial risk, given the lack of engineering knowledge in the system. And then all of a sudden, we've got with renewables. Okay, you have a feed-in tariff guaranteed by the state, and you don't have raw material like fuel supply. Bingo. And that's very easy. You can finance like a 1 megawatt installation of 100 or at 1 gigawatt. It was no brainer that this whole financial industry said, okay, let's go for renewables. Yeah, we make a huge money. How they can make money? Okay, we've seen it in Germany. So let's destroy existing coal, nuclear power plant, power generation infrastructure, and replace the existing system with this new quasi-renewables. Imagine the amount of money bankers make on it. So I think, politicians, they go with the flow. So if they react to news media, okay, they say, yeah, let's do it. Some of them are corrupt, some of them are just dumb. But scientists, okay, they like to do the research. So they go with the flow, whoever pays them, they produce. But the real culprit is financial industry for all that trouble. Energy crisis that we are facing right now. That's my political economics conclusion. So now we come to this current situation in the world, which is really World War III. For me, interesting thing here. So I put here links to a few talks of Mr. Andrei Ilarion. So back in the days, he was an advisor of President Putin, and he was the only one who openly said oh, with climate change is fraud. No, we don't have to ratify Kyoto. And imagine I was working on my master dissertation about this Kyoto Protocol CDM, how angry I was, like more angry when Greta Thunberg with this guy. And over time, maybe 15, 20 years passed, I realized, yeah, he was right on point at that time already, before Kyoto. And now he is one of the most harshest critics of this regime of Mr. Putin, corrupted and criminal regime. I share this opinion with Mr. Larionov. And Russia, before starting invasion in Ukraine, so Russian politicians are evil, but they are not stupid. So they used energy as a weapon. So it was clean with all these previous debates in Ukraine, like they shut off this transit gas pipelines. And there is evidence. So they hired this ex-German Chancellor Schroeder to work for them to push with decarbonization idea and the nuclearization, essentially, because they perfectly understand renewables cannot operate without backup by natural gas. So Russians still have smart engineers about brainwashed. And that was a real policy to fuel is phase out of nuclear, shutdown of carbon, and at the time then last 3 among 6 nuclear power plants were closed. So they started their invasion in Ukraine, and that was quite clear to the people who understand energy geopolitics. And Mr. Larionov is one of them. So in the current situation, there is no chance peace can be achieved through whatever negotiation. So I've seen it from my childhood. The guys like Putin, you just put them in jail for good, or you can achieve peace through victory on a battlefield. No other way around. So I invite everyone to listen those talks of Mr. Larionov. So he's an insider. So from this Russian politics, big Kremlin towers. So, and that's the last part of my talk. So that's political and economy. So that's the title actually of my talk. In Russia, as I said, all economists, engineers got to learn it by heart. In Western countries, people learn economics, and it's basically the discipline how economics and politics interact. So we have most main ideologies, which are liberalism, free market. Then we have the Soviet style Marxist, or nowadays it migrates to this market socialism. And the third category, which is normally considered as one, like economic nationalism, fascism, whatever. But I would distinguish here with specific case of climatic scientism. So it does look like scientifically grounded knowledge, but it's only a false assumption. And if we look into, so when you analyze, do a comparative analysis of different socio-economic system in academia, so you look first what are the purposes. So for me, with climatic scientism has one official, but real purpose of with climate industrial complexes, nothing to do with protection of society against climate change. It's just gaining political power and money for those who have access to those budgets or financial flows through taxation or carbon credits. So actors here are really those politicians, bankers, impact investors. I wouldn't discard as one of the culprits with energy utility companies and big oil guys. So they're playing dirty game. So actually, they may look like, oh, we are to blame, we have to reduce our impact, but they profit massively. So always electrical utility companies, they just scrap old infrastructure, they start building new one. So once subsidy is over, they do repowering. They're to blame. And with oil guys, okay, we can pay a few millions or billions damages, but then the whole market is so much in turmoil, they make 10 and 100 times more from market inefficiency. So for me, with ideology is really even not a zero-sum game, but it's negative sum game. So it's damaging, and it needs to be ended as soon as possible. So few people want to gain at the expense of the rest of society. And then you look into details of this ideology, even a child would understand. So like assuming that the government can modify, change the level of greenhouse emission, ignoring all basic math and physics and basic science. No, that's ridiculous. So with globalization, where you pretend to reduce carbon emissions somewhere else, it fits into this theory of Wilhelm Nordhaus, but does it work in practice? No. And so free market, favor consumption of fossil fuels, do they really damage society? Of course, there is a small environmental, or sometimes it could be big environmental impacts if those fossil fuel technology are not properly deployed and maintained. But the focus should be on protecting, implementing really meaningful environmental protection right here, right now, rather than just pocketing other people's money and creating bigger damage right here, right now. So for me, desired income for these guys have nothing to do with officially declared. It just self-enrichment, and I wouldn't say they're able. So their ignorance is combined with good intentions. So when I talk to those people, it's another motivation for not so well-educated person, like social contribution or good feeling. And they've been lied by politicians, they've been lied by media, they've been lied by science. And it's a tragedy of our time, I think. And we've got to re-educate the people. So that's a little bit of my conclusion for it. So back in the days, I helped my PhD, one of my PhD advisors, Dr. Gnansenu, with his paper on assessing energy vulnerability. So we need to get back to this initial idea of World Bank and start thinking about restoration of energy security. So I'm eager to join forces with other people who are active in academia or just independent research to like update this big study on energy security. So another area where I see a big threat, so since it became evident with solar wind intermittent doesn't work, the attention shift to this magic climate solution, which are small modular nuclear reactor that doesn't exist. So just this is another crazy story. What makes sense is just rebuilding our nuclear power industry from scratch, starting from uranium mining. The whole supply chain has been destroyed by this anti-nuclear policy, and it's stupid to expect that one guy from his lab can build a whole small, like the power plant I built in Finland, 250 megawatt small reactor. No, it's another illusion. So we should concentrate on gigawatt scale, well-proven design. There is competition between different concepts. We need to build like a dozen of new nuclear power plants, regular design at scale. So I have one partner who is looking into possibility to launch such kind of international investment funds on nuclear supply chain. And one more thing, so all academic knowledge I accumulated from back in the days until now, over 20 years, and especially 3-4 years. So I have nowadays nearly 1,600 pages covering every single topic in with climate and energy policy, specifically proving that fraudulent assumption, fraudulent actions, and I think it will make sense to combine our forces and use with open science tools to create like a curated database of all academic literature with proper references. So it's nice when we can refer to podcasts or whatever blogs by smart people. But in order to heal the climate or energy science, we need to provide them access to relevant literature. And these are articles, I'm afraid that even myself don't have time and idea, intention to read big books. So every day I just get a new paper, different topic, and have a few hours to read just a paper. And new generation will absolutely skip with big books. So it's important just one paragraph, cross-check so that all AI is properly referenced to it. And let's see. So yeah, I have this like independent researcher. It's private business school in Switzerland, so I'm free to collaborate on any topic, and I would welcome any form of collaboration. The best would be the best idea, I think, to organize an unconference. So then most of who can make it among the participants of your great podcast, just come to Switzerland, let's brainstorm. Their agenda comes not from the organizers, but we see we're all like-minded and knowledgeable people. So we've got to unite for such a unconference. If we get a little bit of money, we can host it in Switzerland, nice place, or maybe other places around. So that's it. Yeah, it's little bits of forethought, thermodynamics, thermoeconomics. That's the direction I think. It's not up to me, but young guys who will watch this podcast, they should definitely look into this concept and do the research. So I think we all realize that financial markets or broader international markets um, are not optimally functioning. And I would say this ignorance about this basic thermodynamics aspects of energy supply that drives the whole economy is essential for new generation of researchers. So I have a kind of couple of my projects interesting. The last one, we had with the United Nations Convention on Climate Change, and there is another United Nations Convention on combating desertification. So climate alarmists, they pretend global warming drive desertification. It's wrong. And according to many evidences, scientifically proven, we are likely to go into a new cooling stage, not the legal ice age, so we can survive, but with new desertification will be driven by cooling. And so, and we should better look into this reforestation, not for the point of fake voluntary carbon credits, but for addressing meaningful desertification issues. And there is room for technology, so everyone can find his application.
I am curious, are you free to speak your mind like this when you're dealing with normies, you're in your business world, et cetera? Do you just come right out and say all this stuff about this being a fraud, or do you have to censor yourself?
So I'm happy that for the past 20 years I live in Switzerland. So it's quite democratic. So every canton, every village can opine on whatever political topics. And for the last, let's say, 7-8 years, I've been more into with crypto communities. That nowadays migrates from crypto into this green blockchain stuff. So there we have a very open discussion. So I never hesitate to point out any type of frauds or just mistakes or misunderstanding. Also, and even this afternoon, I'm going to attend one of such events to talk to people, to educate them, to share my knowledge.
Do you run into a lot of people that are just all in on the climate scam, and they're shocked that you're not all in on it?
I think in between. So we're all the generation who graduated from these great engineering schools like ETH Zurich, EPFL Lausanne, who don't understand how we can turn out in such a situation brainwashed by politicians. And for new generation, it's very difficult to accept. I've seen one phrase attributed to Mark Twain, probably that it's much easier to lie than and extremely difficult to explain a person that she was lied. It takes me 10 times more effort just to convey my point of view rather than sell whatever scummy carbon credits. I don't do. I prefer fighting for the truth and over time. So let's say with this modeling, strategic thinking, engineering, education, I've learned how to look ahead over years. So let's say in 2002, when I started my research on this carbon emission reduction, Kyoto Protocol, I was talking to all my friends in banking, in oil trading. Oh, guys, what are you doing? In a few years, you will have to pay for your CO2 emission reduction. Everyone were laughing at me. So 10 years passed, we started to worry. Okay, that's something, but we ignore. And nowadays, at least in Europe, everyone, where we can get this carbon credit. So now we have this politician that impose these rules. And I come again and tell them, no, guys, you don't have to buy with fraudulent carbon credit. You have to explain politicians, regulation. That its whole story is based on fraud. So if you properly report your whole fuels, like commodity supply chain, with all its environmental and climate impact, you will report warming instead of cooling. So it's completely realistic.
So can you expand at all on your idea of having an unconference, or have you thought much about what that would actually look like?
We have several topics. I think in Switzerland, which is also a country of asset management. So you have quite a lot of pension funds or whatever private offices with their managers. They've got this requirement from European authorities to implement with ESG compliance tools. And if we are not brainless, we realize that something is wrong. So for me, discussing about with different climates, whether it's natural, which theory is correct, what drives this warming, or is it really warming or maybe cooling? That's a scientific discussion, and it's been ignored by those who have money. So, as I said, my point of view with whole damage was essentially driven by financial industry. So now we have to find this easy to understand topics between scientists, engineers, and bankers responsible for managing other people's money. But on conference, we have such events in crypto, so it can be fun. We can host it in Zurich or in French-speaking parts close to Montreal, where we have this private business school. We can have a nice event next to Montreal Jazz Festival next year. Everyone is welcome and enjoy it.
What's an order of magnitude amount of money that would be necessary for something like that?
I haven't yet calculated. Yeah, but I would say big event, maybe 100K, 100 to 100K.
And one other separate question: did you want to display your T-shirt? We couldn't quite see what's on.
So that's something of my uniform for attending those green blockchain events or sustainability events. Can you see it?
Can't quite see it, but does it say you are the carbon they want to reduce? Or
yes,
there you go. Not in focus well, but
got dressed for tonight's event. I go afterwards and to talk to his green black blockchain people. We educate them.
So this is a T-shirt that you wear out in public and it sparks conversations. Yeah. Perfect. Great. All right. I will let you go soon, but any other points you want to make before we finish up here?
Only points. So I apologize for taking too much time. I hope people enjoyed. I express only gratitude to all, first of all, to yourself, Tom. You are a genius, not only with this podcast, but also with Guerrilla and your Climate, the Truth movie. That's an amazing job. So people like you deserve always Nobel Prizes instead of those comers. And every single participant of your podcast. So I express my sincere gratitude for knowledge we shared that enriched me, and I think we got to stay together, so create networks, communication. So we are all kind of silos, but with LinkedIn community, I think it's quite powerful because you got people from utility industry, you got scientists, you got bankers. This is the decision makers either try to push their scummy idea green energy and actual managers who are responsible for implementing these weird ideas and responsible for spending money. So I would invite everyone to form this network in LinkedIn, essentially, and comment, share knowledge, fight disinformation. So we need to fight disinformation.
All right. And thanks a lot for this PDF that you provided here, because it's so full of information and so many clickable links. So I'll put that PDF up on my Substack, and people that are interested can click on the links and go to all these YouTube presentations. And I already put up a couple of your slides on X because, yeah, a lot of good stuff there. So thank you very much, Denis, and we'll talk to you next time.
Yeah, Tom, thank you very much. Yeah, and thanks for the audience. And stay in touch and keep doing great work.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.